Today I'd like to talk about broken diminished seventh chords, and in particular a type of pattern that Beethoven, Mozart, and Haydn were all fond of using. Let's think for just a moment though, back to your theory days, to remember that there are only three diminished seventh chords. We have this chord, we have this chord, and we have this chord, and then we just have inversions of those. So basically we're dealing with three configurations. Now, two of these chords have the same black-white topography. In other words, this chord has two black keys and two white keys. Same thing here. This chord has two black keys and two white keys. And then the other chord has three white keys and a black key. We'll talk about fingering choices based on those in just a moment. The type of pattern that I want to talk about today is one that involves descending broken tritones. If you take a look at example 1, you'll see what I mean. Let's look at the end of the first line there, last two beats of the third measure. So this is the type of pattern that we'll be talking about. Now, the first order of business is choosing a good fingering, of course. In terms of keyboard geography, there are some very convenient relationships. For example, we're going to choose, when we have a white key and a black key, 1 and 3. 1 on the white key, 3 on the black key. When we have a black key and a white key, we're going to choose 2 and 5. That is 2 on the black key and 5 on the white key. Now, take a look at the fingering that I've marked in the score. 2, 3, 1, 5, 2, 5, 2, 3, and then the pattern repeats after that. There's a particular sequence of fingers that can lead to a problem of crowding if it isn't handled properly. And I'm talking about the part of the design that goes 1, 5, 2, 5. I'll have more to say about that in a few moments, but I would like for you to keep that in mind. Now, I'd like also to discuss a few of the issues that make passages like this successful. And the first thing we want to talk about is the aspect of rotation. You all know that this involves what we call single rotation. In other words, I'm playing to the left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and so forth, alternating directions left and right as I play the passage. The fingering that I'm using is fine, but we need a particular benefit of the rotation in order to make it work well. We want to use the rotation to avoid the feeling of being crowded. So for example, when I start this way, I play to my thumb, the rotation continues, and it provides a preparatory motion that brings me close to the C, where I have to play the 5. And then at the moment of playing 5, I release the thumb so that there's no feeling of being crowded at all. I just want to do that one more time so that you can see it. The rotation brings me close to the C, and when I play the C, the thumb is released from the 5. Now the same is true when I continue. From this point, as I go to the F sharp, I bring the 5 close to the A with the rotation, and then when I play the 5, the rotation releases the F sharp. So let's look at that one more time. I just want you to see how the rotation brings me close to the note that I have to play, and then when I play it, I release the finger that has just played. So releasing the 1, releasing the 2, and so forth. One more time, a little faster without talking. So you see that the hand maintains its natural configuration all the time without any stretching, crowding, or pulling. Now, another aspect of the rotation that is helpful here is what we call active automatic rotation. The passage essentially moves to the left, so the arm has no problem sensing that direction. We want to pay particular attention, though, to the rotations that move opposite to the direction of the passage. In other words, the rotations that go to the right, just to make sure that the hand is balanced over each note. So I'm going to move actively to the right and just let my hand fall automatically to the note on the left. Move actively to the right, fall automatically to the left. Move actively to the right, fall automatically to the left, and so forth, all the way down. Now, this doesn't mean that there's more rotation to the right, just that I'm in tune with that direction so that the rotation going to the right, note going to the right, always gets the full support of the arm. One more time, I'm thinking that I'm moving actively to the right. You just see me turning from side to side. Now, because these passages are single rotation passages, the overall feeling of the passage is one that involves turning. If you know what to look for in the rotation, you can see the forearm turning a little bit. I'm not turning more dramatically than I need to in order to have the note play. I'm simply allowing the arm to balance behind the playing finger by supporting it through that turn. So one more time. Now, I'd like to talk about the aspect of the walking hand and arm for just a moment. As I said before, these passages are descending, so the arm is moving towards the body. And this is one aspect of the walking hand and arm that is in play here. That is lateral motion of the forearm across the keyboard. The walking arm is always moving in the direction of the passage, that is towards the body. But the rotation doesn't just go in one direction. It alternates back and forth. So, as my arm is moving sideways to the left, I'm still allowing it to rotate freely to the right for every note that has to play in that direction. I'd like for you to watch the arm this time and see how it moves smoothly to the left. Okay, a nice, smooth, fluid motion to the left. And at the same time, I'm still feeling each turn to the right, rotationally, as I move the arm laterally to the left. One more time. So, there's another thing that I have to be aware of when I move the arm to the left. As the arm moves to the left, the torso adjusts also. Can you see a little bit that I'm leaning to the left with the torso? Otherwise, the arm would be coming in towards the body and I would start to feel crowded. So we have adjustments of all kinds here. There's a rotational adjustment for each note. The arm is moving to the left and the torso moves to the left as the arm comes along closer to the body. There's also an element of shaping involved here. Now the shape is a fairly long one. It involves the 9 notes going from A to A. So starting at this point, this is where my shape starts. And it goes that far. This is what we call an over shape. It involves a slight getting higher to this point and then coming back to the position where I started. You can't see too much of it. You shouldn't be able to see too much of it, but I'd like for you to focus on my arm for just a moment and see if you can see it come higher to this point and then come slightly down. That's what we mean by shaping. The high point, of course, is right in the middle of the shape because this makes for the most fluid movement. So the high point of this shape would be on the E flat and then coming back down to the starting point. Now the shaping is so small that it shouldn't interfere with the lateral motion. If I try to shape too much, it prevents me from getting across, so I have to use just the right amount of each ingredient for a successful product in the end. Another thing that the shaping will do is it helps soften the feeling of the turning. So it can feel very back and forth without the shaping, but if we add the element of shaping, what it does is it minimizes the amount of turning that I have to do. I don't want to shape so much that I stop rotating, and I certainly don't want to rotate so much that I don't allow for the shaping. So you see, when we add all of these elements together, we're trying to get just the right combination for a good result in the end. So, with that in mind, what I'd like to do is just play through the example one more time without any talking so you can just watch. And then we'll go to example 2. Now, the reason I wanted to show this example is because editors often suggest fingering that puts the 5 at the top of a passage. We can start that way, but it creates a little bit of a difficult situation as we continue. So what I'm going to suggest is that we actually start with the thumb and end with the 3 on the top, cross over the 3 here, and then use the same pattern that we just used a moment ago. So once again, how that looks. Now, let's take a look at example 4. This involves a different configuration. Okay, this is the chord that we'll be using. It still has 2 white keys and 2 black keys. So we have the same kind of spatial consideration that we just dealt with a moment ago. Now, we still have the same aspects of rotation here. I start with a single, there's one double to get me here, and then the rest of the passage is all single rotation in the same way that I described before. And we still have the same issues of crowding involved. So I'm going to let that rotation bring me close to where I have to play the 5, and then when I turn back, you see that I rotationally release my thumb. The rotation brings me to the 5, and I turn back and release the 2. Same thing going all the way down. The aspect of active automatic rotation is also involved. Again, the passage is moving to the left. I'm thinking, move actively to the right, let myself fall. Actively to the right, let myself fall. So forth each time. Also, I want you to know that the articulation that's marked here doesn't interfere with the rotation at all. So, using Beethoven's articulation, we still have that feeling of back and forth, still have that feeling of right and left, I should say, for the rotation. The walking arm is still at play, as you see. I'm moving laterally, but what do you notice about this that's different from the earlier example? The arm has to get much lower, so the torso has to lean over even more in order to allow the arm to get in front of the body there. Let's see what that looks like one more time. So you have to be in this position in order to allow the arm to be down in that register. And the same idea is going to hold true with the shaping. What we're going to do is start the shape here on the E, the B flat is a high point, and then I come back to my level position on the E. So again, the shaping takes place over these 9 notes, starting with the E. One more time. And again, one more time for the passage. Let's stick with Beethoven and go to example number 5. Here we have a different black-white configuration. In this diminished chord we have 3 white keys and 1 black key. But we still have the same issues involved in terms of the rotation, in terms of the lateral movement of the arm, in terms of the possible crowding with the situation from 1-5 to 2-5. And that's what I'd like to look at first. So 1-5, 2-5. This is usually where people complain that the fingering doesn't feel as good as they would like for it to, but the complaint really has to do with how the rotation is managed. So let's take a look at that one more time. I'm starting 1, 2, 3. The last measure on the first line, pick up to that. 1-5, 2-5. The important thing to realize is how the rotation positions my 5 and then releases my 1. Positions my 5 and then releases my 2. One more time from the top. You see that the other things that we talked about earlier are also involved. We have that same active, automatic feeling for the rotation. We have the same walking arm, the lateral motion, and we have the same shape involved. The shape is going to start on D, right here. Okay? So starting with this D and going to this D. Where does that put the high point of the shape? Right in the middle on the A flat. Here. Let's look one more time so we can see all the different aspects at work. The single rotation, the movement of the arm towards the body, the movement of the torso to allow the arm to come in front of the body. Take a look at example number 6. This is from a Haydn sonata. Now here we have another fingering consideration, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's use the consistent fingering that we've been using throughout. If you start the last measure in the example, then if I were going to use consistent fingering here, I would go 2-5-2. But I don't have to be lower than that G sharp. The G sharp is the lowest note that I have to play. So really there's no need to have the thumb lower than that. The thumb is already to the left of the G sharp. So what I'm going to suggest here is that we actually change the fingering and go into that G sharp with the thumb. You'll see the fingering marked in the score. 2-4-1, that's the lowest finger, the lowest note rather, on the G sharp, so this is a convenient place to be. Now, everything is the same that we've talked about before, with one exception. I'm using in motion to approach the black keys with the thumb so that I don't twist to get inside. You see how that works right there, starting on the 4th beat. In, and then I'm right in the place that I need to be when the thumb plays the G sharp. One more time. So this is basically the way these descending broken 7th chords work. We need a good fingering, that is something that doesn't leave the hand feeling crowded or stretched. And we need to consider all the aspects of the rotation that are useful. That is the single rotation for these passages, the active automatic aspect of the rotation, and the way that the rotation helps us avoid the feeling of being crowded when 2 fingers far apart in the hand are brought into close proximity, like the 1 and the 5 or the 2 and the 5. Then beyond that, we have the consideration of the walking arm, that is the arm moving consistently to the left during the passage, and the adjustment of the torso to allow the arm to get as far left as it needs to get. And finally, the aspect of the shaping, which will allow for the smoothest possible combination and synthesis of all of those movements. Thank you.